This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy, medical care, or individualized professional advice. Listening does not create a therapeutic relationship, and if you need professional support, please seek care from a qualified provider. You know how there's always that one person in the group chat who everyone goes to when life gets messy? That's this podcast. I'm Betty, a dietitian, therapist in training, personal trainer, and the friend who's always saying, okay, but let's reframe that for a sec. This isn't about fixing you because there's no magic pill, no perfect plan, and no version of life where the hard part disappears. We're talking expectations versus reality, consistency when you're exhausted, relationships, boundaries, and all the stuff we keep processing over and over again in our group chats. It's real conversations with honest perspectives, a little accountability, and a lot of compassion. Welcome to the Group Chat Therapist, where we think it through together. Welcome to the Group Chat Therapist podcast. I'm your host, Betty G. Today, we're going to talk about a hot topic, dieting. I'm bringing this up today because I thought that by now people would figure out how detrimental diets disguised as health interventions can be at times. But apparently it continues to be a thing. And new diets keep popping up. And honestly, I can't even keep up anymore. Before we begin, though, I want to make a quick note. This episode discusses diet culture and restriction from an eating disorder-informed anti-diet lens. No numbers, no tips. Take what's helpful and leave the rest, okay? Cool beans. I am going to do a quick temperature check. How many of us are not on a diet, but still low-key negotiating with food, judging our bodies, or wondering if we're doing enough to be healthy? Or maybe you are on a diet. If you are, I'm not judging. I'm just here to offer some different perspectives. In today's episode, we're talking about why modern society is so obsessed with dieting, how restriction can get dressed up as wellness and discipline, and why, for a lot of people, dieting is actually the thing standing between them and feeling strong, energized, and at peace in their own bodies. As per usual, this is not a quote-unquote try harder episode. It's more of a what if the rules are the problem episode. Modern dieting culture promises control, worth, and health, but often delivers disconnect, underfueling, and frustration. So I wanted to do a little deep dive into the dictionary and what the definitions are. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, I pulled 4 different definitions for the word diet. 1, food and drink regularly provided or consumed. That's one of my favorite ones. 2, habitual nourishment. Also one of my favorite ones. 3, the kind and amount of food prescribed for a person or animal for a special reason. For example, you're going on a gluten-free diet. And 4th, and my least favorite, TBH, a regimen of eating and drinking sparingly so as to reduce one's weight. And I'm going to talk a little bit about these different definitions because it does matter. As a dietitian, I think it's important to talk about therapeutic diets first, because it is important to note that the word diet in and of itself does not imply or does not signify that there is an issue with food and body image. For example, individuals that have celiac disease, which is a disease in which the small intestine is hypersensitive to gluten and it leads to difficulties in digesting food and some autoimmune responses there. This individual could benefit from a gluten-free diet in order to minimize symptoms, right? And so we call this a therapeutic diet, or it falls under medical nutrition therapy. Now we can flip that exact same principle of gluten-free into something that could be damaging with a message often fed from diet culture, such as carbs are bad for you, gluten-containing products are bad for you, you need to be gluten-free in order to be healthy. And so something that was or could be a therapeutic diet at first is now being put through the diet culture machine. And dietitian Betty doesn't like that much. There is a cultural definition of diet that is based on current societal standards, which implies that someone is consciously restricting their consumption with the goal of losing weight. And that's kind of that 4th definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary that I'm not a super huge fan of. A lot of us have followed a diet at some point in our lives. Before I was a dietitian, I was a consumer of pop culture, and in the name of experimentation, because curiosity is one of my core values, I tried so many diets that in hindsight, they all left me feeling unsatisfied to some capacity. And I'm not going in depth into these diets, but my peeps, I've tried a lot of different things in my past, and it's not fun. We can talk about that some other day. I want to underline that diet culture as we know it right now here in America really emphasizes cognitive rigidity, which means there's a lot of black and white thinking involved, and oftentimes there's a lot of underfueling involved as well. And with that said, chronic dieting reinforces that all or nothing thinking and biological stress responses that work against long-term health and fitness. So what gets tricky about discussing modern diets and diet culture is that they sell it to you, well, to us, because I'm part of society. They sell it to us as something that we're doing in order to be healthy or healthier, but they don't really inform us, because it's not in their best interest. They don't inform us about the long-term effects that these different diets can have on us. First, I want to talk about why is modern society so obsessed with dieting? I feel like we don't get a break. There's dieting everywhere. There's ads about supplements everywhere. We can't outrun it. And I want us to first realize that dieting brings us a sense of control in an unpredictable world, right? Like dieting as we know it and as it's been perpetuated in society, it has rules, and rules bring a sense of control. There's a method to the madness. This is how you're going to do it, and these are the expected results. And when we are in a state of chaos, whether that is the world being in a state of chaos, us individually being in a state of chaos, dieting brings us that control of like, okay, I can't control all these other factors. I can't control that I'm stressed about my job, or I can't control that I'm in a stressful relationship, but I can control this. I can control how much food I put in my mouth, and I can control and I can control what exercises I do and how much. Right? So it fuels that need that we have for control. Another thing that I think is why we're so obsessed with dieting is that thinness equals discipline, morality, and success. That is not what I believe, but that is what is perpetuated within society, that small bodies are disciplined, they're better, they're somehow more successful. Inherently, as people, we want to belong. If we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I can put a little bit more about that on the Group Chat Therapist Instagram page, we all want to belong. And so dieting feeds into that sense of belonging. The wellness industry profits from your insecurities, my insecurities, our insecurities, in order to nurture that need that we have, that Maslow hierarchy of needs, okay? The other thing that I want to bring up is that before and after pictures are a huge thing on social media, on marketing, as part of advertisements, and they're really seductive. And Psychology Today had a fantastic article about this titled Before and After Photos, a Cultural Obsession. And I'm going to link this on the show notes. People love to chew out people's before and after pictures that look flipped. And what I mean by that is that you're quote unquote supposed to look different on your after picture than in your before picture, but in a way that is fitting societal standards of beauty. I was on Instagram and someone that I follow was pointing out how this individual had a before and after picture that was quote unquote flipped. And the message of this post was that this individual was struggling with some feeding behaviors before, and they hated everything and they were miserable. Their mental health was not really that great. And now in the after picture was a picture of them being nourished, feeling more like themselves, enjoying life, overall having a better mental health. And people were destroying this person. They were basically saying things like, are these pictures flipped? are you sure you weren't happier in your before than your after? And they were just really, really mean, chewing this person out because it did not fit the narrative of what society wanted to see. And I'm pulling a direct quote from this article. At the heart of this cultural obsession lies a deeply entrenched belief that thinner bodies are better bodies. The before and after photo relies on a stark visual contrast, typically portraying the before image as undesirable and the after image as a healthier, happier, and more attractive. This reinforces the cultural ideal that weight loss is not only positive, but necessary for self-worth. End quote. So the gist of it is that it perpetuates that belief that before equals worse, having no discipline, being undesirable, versus the now being a depiction of control, success, willpower, and just overall being better. And God forbid you don't look like the after, or you yourself have not gone through an earth-shattering transformation. That must mean that there is something wrong with you. That is so messed up. Now, where it really concerns me is that this can lead to a mini or a full-blown shame spiral. And now you went from scrolling on Instagram or TikTok for fun to having this belief of, well, now I suck and I'm not doing enough. And often when I work with clients that are struggling with eating disorders, sometimes it starts with, I didn't realize there was anything wrong with me until I went on social media or until I heard someone make this comment, either directly to me or indirectly. Before and after pictures can sometimes, not always, but sometimes be damaging for people that are struggling with eating disorders, poor body image, even illness, right? So I would hope that we can look at others' measures of progress, if that is the ultimate goal of before and after pictures, other measures of progress. If you are going through some sort of journey or trying to make certain changes in your life that you organically feel like are going to benefit you, help you live a more sustainable and a more joyful life. I personally don't think that before and after pictures will go away, and they don't inherently have to. Honestly, it is ultimately the foundation for marketing a lot of products and services. And the problem is not inherently in the pictures themselves, but in the way that we present them, the way that we define them, how much we allow them to inform our choices and the beliefs that we hold for ourselves. So I wonder if we can look at before and after pictures when we run into them and approach them with more neutrality, like, is that possible? Or if you know it's just not something you need or something that could be detrimental to you, maybe just scroll past it. I don't know. You tell me what you think about this. The second point I want to bring up is that dieting and health are not the same thing. Weight loss and the pursuit of it is a whole nother podcast. I don't want to get too into the roots, or I don't want to get too far into that rabbit hole of weight loss, but I will entertain it for the sake of this topic. Weight loss does not equal health. Please, just, if you can only take away one thing from this episode, is that weight loss does not equal health. Correlation is not direct, okay? Health behaviors don't always lead to weight loss. And I will explain this very simply. I have people that I have seen with very severe eating disorders that started because their medical providers told them that they needed to lose weight. Now, I'm not their medical provider, so I'm not here to say anything about the medical provider that made that recommendation in the first place, but a lot of people run with it and think, okay, well, all I need to do is lose weight in order to be healthier, and to do that however necessary, or however I get to that thing, then that's how I'm going to do it. But I just need to lose weight because if I'm lighter, then I'm healthier. And that's not always the case. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that a lot of the times that's not always the case. And dieting for weight loss narrows the focus to the scale instead of the body holistically. right? And so, for example, the body needs nourishment. It needs a lot of things. We all have this thing called our basal metabolic rate, which is basically how much energy your body needs to just exist. Like if you were literally going to lay in bed all day staring at the ceiling, your body still needs energy. And the only way you're going to get that energy is one of two ways. You're either going to eat the food and get energy, or your body is going to start utilizing itself in order to get that energy. And the latter is not good, my friends. When your body starts essentially eating itself in order to stay alive, that's not health. Okay. That is not a good thing. And so again, this is a very convoluted topic. I'll make another episode just on the topic of weight loss, but dieting and health are not the same thing. If you are doing this for the pursuit of health, I would like you to consider yourself a whole being that is comprised of emotional health, emotional stability, physical health and stability, mental health and stability. Okay. So dieting itself is not going to give you overall health. The third topic I wanted to bring up is the physiological cost of chronic dieting. And I'm going to explain here chronic dieting as under eating and the metabolic adaptations that come from that. So your body is an extremely resilient machine. Okay. If you are not consuming enough energy, it's going to get it from somewhere. So it's going to start metabolizing body fat, muscle, bones, and your body and you don't get to pick and choose where that's coming from. It's going to figure out where it's coming from. Okay. So you may see a lot of bone loss. So osteopenia, which is a terrible side effect of eating disorders. We also look at chronic muscle loss, which is extremely detrimental. It can start impacting your organs because your organs are comprised of tissues and tissues have cells and energy. And so if your body thinks that it needs to start taking muscle from your organs, then you know what? It's going to do that. Chronic dieting is no bueno. Okay. It increases preoccupation with food. So if you have been a chronic dieter, maybe you're chronically dieting right now, again, no judgment, just want to bring some things to awareness and encourage reflection. Are you preoccupied with food? Answer that question for yourself, not for me, but this is for you. Okay. Are you increasingly worried about food, what you're eating, how much you're eating? Well, now I can't go out with my friends because there's going to be food there and it doesn't, fit my diet. Or, oh my God, I can't eat the cake in my kid's birthday because I just can't do it because my diet says I can't, right? That is increased preoccupation with food. And sometimes it can sneak up on you like, oh yeah, I already ate a bagel, so I think I'm good. Or someone making a comment like, oh, are you sure you're going to eat all of that pizza? Right? Like these are food thoughts, food noises that can become louder and louder as you dive deeper into chronic dieting. Chronic dieting also impacts your energy. Okay. Don't tell me that you're chronically dieting and you suddenly feel energized because physiologically that is very unlikely. It also disrupts a lot of hormones, which not only impact your mood, right? So that concept of being hangry, that is not a personality trait. You being hangry is actually an imbalance in biochemicals in your body, ghrelin, leptin, that are telling you, I need nourishment. I need food in my body and it's not getting it and it's making you a crabby pants. Okay. So yes, chronic dieting can make you a crabby pants. With hormones too, we see loss of periods. So amenorrhea, right? Some people will be like, oh, yay, I don't have a period. But actually losing your period, especially because you're undernourished, is a huge issue, not only for physiological problems, right? Like it can cause problems again with bone loss. It can cause fertility issues. It can cause a lot of problems. We also have to look at sleep. If you're not nourishing yourself properly, it will disrupt your sleep patterns. That is a thing. And it's also going to impact your ability to perform, right? So if you are an athlete, or if you have a job that is physically demanding, or if your life is physically demanding, like, I don't know, if you have little kids and you're running around, not having enough nourishment is going to impact your ability to perform in these different domains of your life. Ultimately, the body's going to do what the body is going to do in order to keep itself moving. And it's going to interpret dieting as a threat, but not necessarily in the way that it's going to tell you, stop dieting right now. It will tell you. And if you don't have that body awareness, you may ignore some of these signs. And I really hope that every single person can develop enough body awareness to recognize when something's not going right. I'm not feeling good. I'm not sleeping well. I am lashing out on people. I can't formulate thoughts. I can't focus at work. I can't retain information. All these things are the physiological cost of chronic dieting. Topic number 4, número 4, is that fitness requires fuel. And I tried so hard to find one definition of fitness that was all encompassing. And the closest definition I found was the quality or state of being fit. And that didn't really tell me much, because then what is the definition of fit? So then I continued to go down the rabbit hole and looked up the word fit, and there's 2 that I think are relevant to this topic. One was sound physically and mentally. Okay, I like that. So being fit is being sound physically and mentally. And the other one is adapted to the environment so as to be capable of surviving. So if I can smush these 2 together, I would say that according to the source, which is the Merriam-Webster, again, unpaid advertisement, it is being physically and mentally well enough to the point where you're able to survive and adapt to the environment. Okay, I can hang with that. I still think that this is convoluted, and I wonder what people define as fitness for themselves. The reason why we're talking about fitness requiring fuel is because there's also been a movement parallel to dieting, which is, well, now you need to do 20 things in order to be fit and stay fit, right? So it's like the 2 hold hands and walk together to this abyss that honestly is more like a tornado, and just at least gives me a migraine just thinking about, I need to be fit, and this is how I need to be fit, then this is how I need to diet. And it's just so exhausting, everyone. So I hope that you can all get to a place where you're just doing what you need to do for yourself in order to live in alignment with your values. But again, convo for another day. According to the Encyclopedia of Behavioral Medicine, this is my favorite definition. Physical fitness is one's ability to execute daily activities with optimal performance, endurance, and strength, with the management of disease, fatigue, and stress, and reduced sedentary behavior. I like this definition because it takes into account that sometimes there's disease and illness, sometimes there's fatigue, sometimes there's stress, sometimes we're sedentary, and the goal is to just reduce it to the best of our abilities. And so why we need to have this conversation is because whatever it is that you choose to do for the name of fitness, you cannot train, recover, or build any strength without adequate calories. Like, that's just physiology 101 and just science and the laws of physics. So a lot of the clients that I see in eating disorder recovery also use compensatory exercise in conjunction with other maladaptive behaviors. And that is just a recipe for disaster, because not only are you taking your body through a lot of stress, right? Like, for example, I'm running on a treadmill for 3 hours until it reaches my caloric target. But then at the same time, I'm restricting. It's almost like you're doubling down on depriving your body of nourishment. So it just makes things a lot more ineffective when you're doing it in the name of health and fitness, right? But as I hope you've all learned by now, that's more of like an underlying disguise and not actually what may be going on when you're following diet culture recommendations. I love talking to my clients about eating enough to nourish their bodies, to support muscle, bone health, hormones, mental focus, and all those things. And being disciplined, quote unquote, which is one of the pillars of diet culture, actually can mean eating more, not less. Eating to support your energy levels, eating for nourishment, eating for enjoyment, eating for fulfillment, eating because you're with people. And for a lot of different cultures, food is love, food is family, food is being with one another, right? So when we're talking about dieting and diet culture, if anyone's giving you this black and white, this is what you need to do, that's where I draw the red flags, because eating nutrition, overall health and well-being is not just a black and white thing. And number 5, why stopping dieting can feel scary, but it's often necessary. Why is dieting easier sometimes? Why is stopping scary and hard sometimes? Well, a lot of people tie their identity to dieting. This is who I am. I'm the person who eats this much. I'm the person who only eats this. I'm the person who doesn't eat that. And that is their identity. And that is really, really hard. And so one of the things that we work on in therapeutic interventions is, who are you when you put your dieting aside? Who are you? Do you even know? And it's okay if you don't know, because that's one of the beautiful things about wanting to change and choosing to be different for yourself and for your own well-being, is that you can learn more about yourself. You can figure out who you are without this diet. You can learn who you are without your disordered thoughts, without compulsive exercising. And it's scary because it's almost like you are taking all your clothes and you're running around naked without any protection. And at first, that is exactly how it feels. You feel vulnerable, but you don't have to do it alone. And that is why having a network of people that support you, maybe a treatment team, if that is the route that you need to go, that is why it's so helpful. Because in that moment, when you're feeling vulnerable and naked, that is an opportunity where you can rebuild yourself to live in alignment with you, your values, organically, what you want to do for yourself and with your life. Sometimes people are petrified of gaining weight. And again, it's because of this message from society that gaining weight is a bad thing, or that being a certain number or a certain body shape and size is a bad thing. I feel so sad for people that literally cry thinking about how their worth is only tied to their bodies and how they look. And that's not their fault. Okay. This is something that has been perpetuated in society, and it's changed throughout history too. One of these days, I'm going to talk about body standards across history and how it's changed. And newsflash, if it's changing so much, then is there truly a one size fits all? No, there isn't. Okay. There's no way I can convince anyone struggling with body image that the way they are is acceptable, is good enough, right? And so again, I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to change your thoughts or beliefs. I'm just trying to help you reflect on what your thoughts and beliefs are and help you put things into a different perspective. And learning to trust your body again is really, really hard, right? If you've been chronically dieting for years, maybe you've learned this from the people that raised you. Maybe it continues to be perpetuated in the environment that you're living in. It's really, really hard to learn how to trust your body again. And so the movement of intuitive eating has done a little bit in teaching people how to relearn how to trust themselves and their bodies again. But again, it's not a perfect science. This is going to be your call to action if you find this helpful For 1 week, for the next 7 days, notice where, when, and with whom do food rules show up for you. Just start noticing. Notice when restriction is disguised as health. Is it in the TV? Is it in social media? Is it in something in the bulletin board at work? I don't know, but start noticing where they are promoting health when it's actually promoting restrictive behaviors. I also want you to notice, how does your energy, your mood, your focus respond to nourishing your body? Okay. And I don't get to decide what that is. You are the one who gets to decide what that is. And maybe you need extra support to help you decide what that is. And that is okay. Needing help, asking for help is also okay. And like a broken record, you don't need to change absolutely anything if you don't want to. Just gain some insight and some awareness. Because sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is stop trying to shrink your body and start supporting it instead. So instead of trying harder, like the message that we get bombarded with, like, you need to do more. Some of you need to stop dieting in order to support your metabolic health, your mental well-being, and a sustainable lifestyle that brings you joy. So if this episode made you feel seen, called out, or a little uncomfortable in a wait, hold on kind of way, that's the work. Sometimes awareness is the therapeutic intervention. Now, if this reframed something you've always believed about dieting, send it to the group chat. Sharing is caring. Also, head on over to Instagram, write me out, and follow the show at the Group Chat Therapist Pod, and DM me what came up for you or the topic your group chat cannot stop spiraling about. I'll talk to you next week, besties. Ciao, ciao.